This video is a mashup of all 4 videos in my Creating Custom Neighborhoods playlist. Consider it a mega guide of some sort. Enjoy! Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel, and today I want to show you my favorite custom neighborhood templates. I did not include the pre-made neighborhoods on this list, like Pleasant View and Strangetown and all that, because we already know those are pretty good maps. Some of these are already in the game, while others I found on Mod The Sims and downloaded, but I will link all the downloadable ones on a Tumblr post for you, just to make it a little bit easier. So I divided everything into 3 categories: small, medium, and large. To classify as a favorite of mine, at least 90% of the land on the maps have to be flat, so that way it's easier to build and place lots on. If you are able to build on uneven terrain, I give you props, because I sure as hell cannot do that. I'm not talented enough. But anyways, let's start off our list. For small ones, we got Arcadia Peaks. I love this one. I find it very beautiful despite it being quite small. It's pretty nice too how my camera mod shows everything that is needed. No hidden roads or anything. Our next one is Beachfront. Personally, I think it's a bit too small for an actual neighborhood, but I could really see this working perfectly as a vacation neighborhood. Next one is Vinville. I like how there's a hill overlooking the rest of the neighborhood. I like to use the hills as rich sim territory. I could also see this being a great shopping district neighborhood as well. Hidden Valley is our next one, and it's quite cute. Not as much wiggle room with the roads as the other maps mentioned, but I do think this one has great potential. And our very last small one is Magnolia. Just like the Hidden Valley map, there's not much to it. I could actually see this being a great downtown neighborhood, and maybe even a shopping district one as well. To kick off our medium section, we got Aridia. I think it's such a pretty and spacious map. As you can tell, I've already tried to plan some stuff with it. Very nice and flat too. I think it'd be perfect for everything. Next we got Briny Ford. It's separated into 2 sections, which I really like. I'm not sure why this automatically spawns so many trees though. Other than that though, it's very nice. I could actually see one side being a residential area and then the other side for community lots. This one might look very familiar to you, but this is the Cherry Blossomville map. I used it for my Bloomsbury Lake neighborhood. It's pretty flat and easy to build on. I will say it does get kind of tricky near where I place the farmland decorations. The terrain over there is kind of hilly and uneven, but other than that, this is a great map to use and one of my all-time favorites. Driftwood. Had to include it. I'm sure we've all made a neighborhood with this template. Definitely one of my all-time favorites. Next one is Gidridge Mountains. I could see this being a vacation map or even a main neighborhood as well. I definitely love maps with separated sections. Makes it very nice and easy for planning. Another favorite of mine is Oasis Valley. I used to use this map all the time creating my neighborhoods. Really great to use. However, I will say it can be kind of tricky to build near the lake. You can kind of see that little divot in one of the roads there. But yeah. This one is Riverton Heights. Another great template. Very nice and big and spacious. This one's an underrated one, but I find the sample map is a great one too. This one is kind of smaller than the other medium ones I've shown, but it's a very lovely map. I remember I made a neighborhood with this one time, and midway through building I actually thought it was a bit too tiny. But it's great. If you haven't tried it yet, I would definitely give it a try. A new recent favorite of mine is Seastack Island. It is so huge. There's even 2 islands you can place slots on, like on the edges. I vision maybe some supernatural sims could be living there. Also, I love how you can place beach slots in this one, which I honestly rarely ever do, so that's pretty exciting. And our last few in this section are Zane's Hollow. So the creator made 5 of these. Obviously you can use whatever for whichever you'd like, but I think the creator said map A was ideal for the main neighborhood, B was ideal for the business district, C for university, D for downtown, and E as an extra bonus map. I love the idea, so I downloaded all 5. Our last section, large maps. So our first one here is Bella Isle. It's so big my camera mod doesn't show all of it, but I really do like it. I like how the creator even included some spots to add beach houses. I will say it is kind of overwhelming looking at this, but still a great map. Eagle Hills is our next one. It's kind of on the smaller end of large, but I do like it a lot. Tons of space to build. I don't even think you would even need to include Blue Water Village or a downtown or anything, honestly, because there's more than enough space to include everything. Next one, Ford Lake. Very huge. So much you could do with this map. I could see maybe one side being like a downtown and the other a residential area. Kind of like the other ones where there's a divide. This one is Gun Cove. I like how everything is centered. I actually could see the area by the lake being for businesses and the other 2 sections for lower income sims and wealthy sims. Another used to be go-to of mine, Isla Segundu. I used to use this one all the time. I find it to be quite big though and a little bit intimidating, which is why I stopped using this one, but I still wanted to include it anyway. Lake Crossing Beach is our next one. Loads of space to build, and again, beach slots. I definitely could see this replacing Tweaky Island potentially if you wanted to build your own vacation hood. Next one is Sedona. This one actually has a flyby camera thing like Pleasant View does, which was pretty interesting to know. I had no idea. Really nice map though. Very flat, tons of space to build and decorate on. It checks all the boxes. The Sapphire Divide is our next one. I think this might be my favorite from this section. Everything is so symmetrical. I think this might actually be the next map I use for another custom neighborhood. Love it a lot. The creator did a wonderful job with it. Last but not least, Viper Canyon. Again, another map I would use very frequently. I downloaded a neighborhood recently that uses this map as well, and this is one of the better ones Max and EA designed, in my personal opinion. Just lots of flat space and lots of other spaces to decorate as well. And those are my lists. What maps were your favorite? And do you personally like to create small, medium, or large neighborhoods? I personally like small to medium. I find it to be a little less overwhelming, but big enough to place everything I need. And as mentioned at the beginning, I will link all the ones not available at first install on a Tumblr post for you. That way if you find one that you liked, you have a direct link to it. In the next part, I'll show you how to start a custom neighborhood. In this part, I'll show you how to start a custom neighborhood. We're going to be using my university neighborhood as an example since I got inspired to actually start decorating it recently. And if you're interested, I did use the Zane's Hollow C map, which I found on Mod The Sims. You are able to make your own maps with SimCity 4, but I have yet to figure it out. So I just tend to use the ones that are already in game, or I download one. So I kind of ran over this in my last video where I show you my favorite Sims 2 maps, but as a quick rundown, my main requirement is the map should be 90% flat where the roads are placed. It's just so it makes it easier for me to build on. Since we are going to be using my university as an example, I specifically wanted this to be smaller than my main neighborhood. But the size is up to you though, do whatever you think is the best. A great tip is I'll just create neighborhoods with a ton of maps and then figure out which one I like best, and then I'll keep that one and just delete the others. So for me, I like to place community lots and apartments, or in this case, dorms, near the center of the map. I like to consider the city part of the map to be in the middle, and the residential area is kind of off to the sides. I kind of model it after real life. Like where I work, there's a ton of shops and restaurants all within like one street, and then surrounding it are houses and apartments. Now, how do I choose what community lots to place in the neighborhood? So, for a main hood, I usually have a few requirements. I like to have at least one cemetery, one restaurant, a gym, a park, a grocery store with harvestable fruits and vegetables and stuff, and then a clothing store. As long as I have these buildings, I can build whatever miscellaneous stuff I want to fill the rest of the gaps in the neighborhood. Since this is a college neighborhood, I don't really need a few of these, but I'll most likely just replace it for something else. I have mods that make college pretty short anyway, so my sims aren't here long. Like, for example, I chose to build a train station inspired after one I went to in the Chicago suburbs a few months ago. Obviously in The Sims it has no purpose, it's just mainly there for fun and decoration. But I like to imagine The Sims enrolling in Bloomberry Institute have to take the train or a taxi or something to get here since it's pretty far from the main neighborhood. I never used this bullet train decoration, so I feel like it fit nicely with what I was trying to do. Unfortunately, there is no cave decoration, so I use these big old boulders to kind of simulate one. I also decided to build a theater for the drama students. Again, it has no purpose, but it's there for decoration. I actually built this one last week, and as I went to save, the game crashed. So right now the lot is blank, but I do plan on rebuilding it eventually. Get creative with these things though. Even if there is no purpose for these buildings, it does make your neighborhood unique and fun. Besides, if you get tired of the buildings you made later on, you can always move it somewhere or bulldoze it and make something else. I've already done that a handful of times in my main neighborhood. I like to think maybe it's like the town evolving or upgrading. Lot sizing, I do have a difficult time with, but I try to mess around and see what I think works best. I personally like to build on small to medium lots. Bigger builds are just hard for me in general to decorate personally. They're just way too big and I don't know what to really use to fill in the gaps. I'll pretty much place a lot and name it what I plan to build there, and I keep going until I don't have much room anymore. If I don't like the sizes, I bulldoze and start over. But this current layout I'm pretty happy with, so after I'm satisfied I usually go back and name the buildings. Now, how do I come up with names? I use name generators. One of my favorite websites is Mithril and Mages. I think I'm pronouncing that right. But not only does it give you names for pretty much anything, but it also gives you some business ideas for community lots. I'll also use some fantasy name generators sometimes. I'll link both websites in the description. I also found one that someone made specifically for Sims 2 neighborhood names. It's pretty good. Sometimes too, I'll also search for synonyms for something and I'll use that as well. That's actually how I came up with the name of my university. So doing all these is great if you're ever stumped on names or if you have a tendency to use the same thing over and over again and kind of want to change it up. Since the Sims mascot is the llama, a lot of my buildings in university have llama in the name. And for the dorms, I actually named them after types of flowers. For whatever reason, every neighborhood I've ever created, the road names I come up with are all nature themed, so it's usually trees or like types of flowers. I can't help it though. Having a theme though can make it easier with naming stuff and keeps everything cohesive. I don't really have much advice on decorating. I usually just go with what feels right with the neighborhood. Around the community lots and dorms here, I did place the university street banners, which I never used, so I thought it was nice. You see these a lot when you go like downtown or like on a college campus in real life anyway, so I like to take some inspiration from that. And the theater I was just talking about, I actually placed some of the nightlife lights here, and it's a nice touch since I never use these. And over here we do have like the river. I always add the waves decoration whenever there's water in my neighborhood. They do take a lot of time to place correctly, but the result is always stunning. Trees I almost always place last. I tend to use those to surround the hood. And you can view my Skyline Acres neighborhood as an example. There is a ton of trees there. I will also go to the pre-made neighborhoods and get inspiration from that. It might be an unpopular opinion, but I do like how EA and Maxis decorated those. Very simplistic, but very cute. Now, for descriptions for the lots and neighborhoods, they are the most difficult thing about planning this entire thing personally. I usually always save those for last, or I just leave it empty. A great tip is wait until everything is built so you can kind of see where you want to go with it. And especially with the neighborhood descriptions, I like to move some Sims in and play them for a bit to see how the story progresses. As an extra tip, this has nothing to do with the actual neighborhood, but if you ever run out of room in your main neighborhood, you can always create a shopping district. I use it as a secondary hood anyway. I currently don't need to do that at this time, but usually I almost always add another one after I play for a couple generations. And I believe that is all my tips. I'll also make a Tumblr post with all this info if you want to keep a reference for yourself. In the next part, I'll show you how to create unique families. Today I'm going to show you some different methods to create Sims and families. Obviously you can create them however you'd like, but if you tend to use the same faces over and over again and want to change it up, this video may be for you. Our first method is the Pooklet method. It is the most tedious and the most confusing one personally. I don't use it too much, but I wanted to share it anyway. To do this, you will need to create your Sims in Body Shop. Once Body Shop is opened and your Sim is generated, go to the Modifiers tab and roll between -10 and 10 for each feature. This is tedious because of the amount of sliders per feature, but take your time though. Write down the numbers too so you don't have to Alt-Tab. And I'm going to speed this up, but you can see me doing this method here. Once you're done with all that, your Sim is going to look a little bit crazy. To fix that though, go to the Faces tab and count the number of face templates. You can use default replacements or download more if you wish, but I use what's already in the game. We have 27 total, so now you'll use the random integer generator to generate a table to use. First two numbers will be for the face, next two for brows, next two for eyes, and etc. If the table doesn't work for you, you can always go to random.org and type 1 in minimum and 27 for max and roll 2 times per feature. You will then drag the slider about 1/3 from the right. Do this for each one and you're done. Pooklet does have a tutorial on their Tumblr for this, so I will link that below for you if this is still kind of confusing. Practice makes perfect. Our second method, and the one I use personally, is creating 2 random Sims with very different templates and using the pacifier in Create a Sim. After generating, I'll delete the male and female placeholder Sims. I also do believe the Sim you generated will pass down a placeholder Sim's dominant and recessive genes, but that may just be because I have Eevee's Equal Genetics mod installed in my game. Our third method is custom sliders and custom face templates. You can find so many on Mod the Sims. I have sonqgmi sliders, but honestly, I don't use them super often. And I'll also link the Mod the Sims page for the sliders in the description so you can look around and download ones you'd like. Another method you could try is going to random.org and just rolling random numbers per feature. Basically a recreation of the Sims 4 Random Genetics Challenge. Works wonders and gives you some unique Sims. This is my go-to in Sims 4, but it works perfectly fine in Sims 2 as well. You can also combine all the methods above and create even more unique Sims. Now, what about personalities and aspiration? There's 3 ways you can do this. After picking their clothing and makeup and appearance, I'll just choose their zodiac and aspiration based off what I made them look like. I do this the most as it is the easiest, but sometimes I unintentionally make almost the same Sims. It's still fun to do though. Another method is rolling random numbers. Just like with the face templates, you can roll 1 to 12 for the zodiac sign, 1 to 10 for each personality point, and 1 to 6 for aspiration. You'll get some pretty unique Sims this way. Last method is using the Sim Randomizer created by Catchery Sims on Mod the Sims. This will generate pretty much everything for you. Number of Sims in the family, hair color, skin color, age, turns on and turns off, career, aspirations, hobby, you name it. I used to use this a lot years and years ago, and I just recently remembered this existed, so I re-downloaded it. So it's a great way to make families. Now for the hard part, naming my Sims. How do I name them? I either will come up with something in my head, or I'll use Google for help. Those baby name websites sure do come in handy. If I have a baby born in-game, I'll search up the origin of the parents' first and last names and find a name that way. Like for example with the Ramaswamy family, Prayan Sanjay's first and last name is of Indian and Sanskrit origin, so for all their kids, I search names with the same origin. Now, for storylines, I will usually think of something as I'm playing with the actual families, but sometimes I'll take inspiration from stories from the pre-made neighborhoods and put a little spin on it. Sometimes the family doesn't even have a story at all and they just kind of exist. I'd love to know ways you all create your Sim stories. And I think that's about it with my tips for families. What's your favorite way to create Sims? Have you used any of these methods before? I would love to know. Our last portion here is how to create custom terrains. Today I'm going to show you how to make your own Sims 2 terrains with SimCity 4. SimCity 4 is available on the EA app. I want to say it is around $5. It may also be free. I have no idea, but you can get it there. Make sure Sims 2 is closed and open up SimCity 4. Now, once the game loads, you'll see all these little regions here. We do need to pick the smallest size lot, as this size is the only one that will import into The Sims 2. I'm going to pick this water one down in the corner here, so let's load it. So, The Sims 2 will only read the center of the map here, unless of course you use a camera mod in the game. I do use a camera mod, so we're going to make use of all of the space that this map gave us. There's a ton of terraforming tools you can use as well, but being a beginner, I'm just going to keep it simple and make a little island here. They're fairly easy to make. Since this map is all water, we just have to use the hill tool to make the actual island. If the land isn't as flat as you would like it to be, SimCity does have a soften tool. The quick level tool also works great as well. We're going to use a mix of both to ensure that our map is as flat as possible, just so it's a little bit easier to build on when we get into The Sims 2. You pretty much just kind of experiment and mess around until you think everything looks great. Now, how do we add roads? We need something to build houses on, of course. Well, to do that, we must go into mirror mode. It'll ask us to name our map. I'm going to name this one Love Island. Now we can add roads and bridges and all sorts of fun extra stuff. We can only use the straight and right angle junction roads, as the diagonal ones here do not work in The Sims 2. The scaling in The Sims 2 is a lot different than SimCity, so it is recommended to try and place them relatively close together, but obviously because this is your map, do whatever you like. And if you place a road or anything you don't like, you can just hit the undo button or the little bulldozer icon. Play around with it until you're satisfied. This looks pretty decent to me, so we're going to save and exit the game. Now, to import it into The Sims 2, we do need to find the .sc4 file. It's usually in My Documents, SimCity 4, Regions, Timbuktu, and then whatever you named it. Copy and paste that file into the SC4 Terrains folder. You can find it under My Documents, EA Games, The Sims 2 Ultimate Collection, and SC4 Terrains. Once you paste it there, open The Sims 2, and it should be available when you make a new neighborhood. And our neighborhood is not as flat as I was hoping. That's okay though, at least we know it works. Sims 2 also tends to flip the map, so it does look a tad bit different here than in SimCity 4, but you can just rotate the camera. Now, when you make a terrain and add it to The Sims 2, there is no picture, so I'm going to show you how to make one of those. But first, go ahead and take a screenshot of the neighborhood. Then go ahead and exit the game. Now, you will open up Photoshop or Paint or GIMP or whatever you use. I personally use Photoshop, so we're just going to use that. And here we're going to create a new canvas. The size you will need is 400 by 300 pixels. I have it saved already, so we're just going to open that. I have all of the settings here on the side for you, so go ahead and just copy and paste them. We need to find the original terrain picture and then overwrite it with the new one we just took. So to find the original, go to My Documents, EA Games, The Sims 2 Ultimate Collection, Neighborhoods, and then mine's under N009, so click that, and then N009 underscore neighborhood. Open that and we'll have the picture, and then we just need to find the new one we just took. It's usually under the same file, it's just under the storytelling folder instead. And once we open that, we just drag it right on top of the old one and resize it. Overwrite the file and then reload the game. Our new picture is now visible. You can also download neighborhoods that others have created. The best place for that is Mod The Sims. I did kind of briefly touch upon this in my favorite neighborhood templates video. It's just like downloading mods or custom content, so when you download one, just make sure you place it into the SC4 Terrains folder. As long as it's in there, it'll show up in your game when you go to create a new neighborhood. And that's about it for this tutorial. It's pretty simple. Though SimCity 4 does get kind of hard to navigate and work around, but with more practice, you can create some pretty awesome maps. And if you want to download the map I created today in this little video here, I'll have a link in the description for you. And hopefully this video helped you all, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.